Listen, if you are an ambitious woman, a busy woman, practically working in the corporate arena, and you're also building your business on the side, the one thing you are right now for sure is starved for time, right? And you need to find ways to work on your business, build your business, grow your business, possibly set up your business for scaling in the crevices of your day. And that can be very challenging, right? If you are working in the corporate arena and you are finding that you don't have a lot of time and you're working in a position that just keeps you, takes up a lot of your time and your attention and energy. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can actually maximize your day. And I'm going to teach you how to really build your brand and your business on the go. Okay. Because right now we need to make sure that you are preserving your time, protecting your time, preserving your energy, right? And building your business without burnout. So I'm going to give you 3 practical tips today on how to do exactly that. Now, the first thing I want to share with you, because I know you don't have a lot of time and you want to kind of get in and get out of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and not, put in any fluff here. We're going to get straight to the point so that you can get the information you need and just take off and run with it. Okay. And so, I'm going to be cognizant of the time here to make sure that we can give you exactly what you came for. The first thing I want to share with you is something you may or may not have heard of, but I don't hear a lot of coaches talking about. So I'm going to share this with you today. So tip number 1 is that I want you to use what's called the Pomodoro method or a technique. Okay. So what is that? This is where you are breaking up your time, your task rather, into 25 minutes of focused time blocks. Okay. So that exactly means this. So if, for example, right now you have an overarching goal, obviously, right? But if you are working a very demanding position right now, perhaps you're in a leadership position and you have, you're putting out fires all day, you're taking care of tasks all day, you're in meetings a lot, you're commuting here and there, you're doing all of the leadership stuff and you have a heavy workload. And then at the end of the day, you're just too exhausted to really put in the time that it takes, that's actually required, any efforts that are actually required towards your business because you're just so exhausted. So rather than trying to focus on one big goal, the first thing you're going to do is break up your task, your big task, into smaller 25-minute blocks of time so that you can be laser focused on those things you need to do. So for example, and what that's going to do, by the way, this is where this particular technique allows you to, again, protect your time and preserve your energy. Yes, but really and truly, it allows you to be productive in the day, right? Or productive during your work hours, again, in the crevices of the day where you can find time, but without feeling burnt out and overly exerted and exhausted, okay? Because you're just going to be laser focused on like 1 or 2 tasks. So let me give you some examples of what that could look like. The first thing you might want to do is, for example, top of the morning. And I know this might sound like a stretch at first, but if you can just allow yourself at least, an extra 30 minutes at the top of the day, give yourself an extra 30 minutes in your business before you actually go give it to everybody else at work. Okay. Because just like I know, that once you get to work and you get wrapped up into all of everything that's going on in the corporate world, it's nearly impossible, or it seems nearly impossible, with it just being you and the 24 hours a day that you have. So you're going to have to try and find some additional time for yourself to give to your business in the beginning. So it may be a stretch at first, but it's something that you need to get adjusted to, because you got to give time to yourself and to your business first in order for you to get to a place of being profitable and thriving in your business. So eventually you can leave your full-time job. So the first thing I want you to do is give yourself at least an extra 30 minutes in the morning, where before you get to work, you can be working on taking a 25-minute block of time to work on tasks like checking your emails, sending out an email broadcast, maybe, working on some social media strategies, or, a plan for, what you're going to do for your next YouTube video, or maybe scheduling out, at least a week or two, or maybe a day or two of some content. Okay. Now, here's how I want you. Now, that's the first 25 minutes. Now, the next 25 minutes would be, say, for example, during your lunch hour. I'm going to assume that if you are in a leadership role and you have, or, even if you're an independent contributor and you're not necessarily in a leadership role, that's okay. But if you have at least, say, an hour of time for your lunch, your meal period, then what I'd suggest for you to do during that time is you're going to take the second 25 minute block of time, and that first now think about this in a 60-minute time block, okay? Because that's your lunch time. So the first 25 minutes, or the first 5 minutes, okay? I want you to go ahead and just take some deep breaths, and I want you to transition from being that, employee or leader from, whatever you just had going on at work. And you're going to use that time to just do some deep breathing and switch gears, because you've got to leave that for a second so that you can get in the mindset of an entrepreneur and as a business owner. So you can now take some time, just a quick mental moment, to debrief with yourself, right? To take some deep breaths and then switch gears. Now, that's the first 5 minutes. 25 minutes left to go ahead now for the first hour. And I would say use that to go ahead and grab a bite to eat, okay? Because you've got to keep yourself with high energy. So refuel yourself with, hopefully you've already prepared your lunch, or you can grab a quick bite. And I would say go ahead and, take that time to eat some lunch. Now that's the first 30 minutes of your hour lunch break. The next 25 minutes, okay, you've got 30 more minutes. The next 25 minutes you can take to do a blog post. You can start brainstorming or start to write out your newsletter, right? If you can send out an email campaign, or like I said, an email broadcast. You can work on something, one task at least, so that you can so that you can be rather closer to completing that task, right? And then the last 5 minutes you can take to, again, take some deep breaths, maybe go use the restroom if you hadn't done that yet. And then you got to switch gears again, because now you've got to transition from going from a business owner or an entrepreneur back to an employee or leader, so that you can get back into the role of doing whatever you got to do. Okay. So this is exactly the things that what I'm telling you to do here, and what I'm suggesting I've done myself. And this is exactly some of the practical tips that I teach the women that I work with, so that they can find time to be more productive with the, small amount of time that they have in the busyness of their days. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, or the second tip is, automate and delegate. Always, 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 again, top of mind, number one priority is self-care. So always, 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 you need to protect your time and preserve your energy. And automation and delegation is really key to doing this, okay? So you're going to utilize tools and systems, and you're going to hopefully you have this in place already. If not, then this is something I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do, because the one thing that you don't have enough time for is to pile more things on your plate, because that is going to exhaust you, right? If you don't have the energy to put towards growing your business, then your business is never going to soar. So I know you're putting in a lot of time and energy into your job, but that's not the end goal, right? Your goal is a bigger goal. Your dream is a bigger dream. So you've got to create capacity, brain capacity, right? More bandwidth, so that you can level up without burning out. Okay, so automation and delegation is key. So you're going to utilize or leverage tools, online tools, because we're talking about building an online empire, an online business, right, or company. And you're going to put systems in place to help you out. And you're going to hopefully, I'm not saying you have to go out and hire a team, but I would highly recommend to at least hire one VA or virtual assistant to help you with at least the administrative task, even if it's just for 1 or 2 hours. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some suggestions here, or an example. So, and I'm going to tell you, I'll just inject my story here really quick to put this into practical terms for you. Okay. And I'm keeping an eye on the time for you. So when I was working in the very beginning of my business, I've been doing this online coaching and consulting business for the last 8 years. And the first 1.5 to 2 years of my business, it was just me and my former business partner. And we were wearing all the hats and doing all the things. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to do that, right? To still make progress in your business while it's just you doing all the things, but I will promise you it is a fast burnout. So you really don't want to put yourself in that kind of position, because that's setting you up to fail as opposed to setting you up for success. Okay. So she was working at the time in the ER. She was working for a major hospital, working in a level 1 trauma center. And so that was a very demanding position. She obviously couldn't just kick back and, just work on the business while she was working in the hospital setting. And I was working for a large healthcare corporation as a healthcare administrator, who I had a lot on my plate, being like an interim regional director. And I was doing a lot of traveling in different regions. So it was nearly impossible for the two of us to try to do all the things. Eventually, when we realized that, okay, this ain't working, we had to hire help. And thank God. I mean, we really had somebody who was sent to us just in the nick of time. She was a godsend, and she was with me for like the first 4, almost 5 years in this business, and as my lead VA before she ended up moving on. So I ended up paying her before my business was even making money, and I couldn't even pay myself. But I had to free up my time, and I had to, again, it was about not having to put myself in a position where I was just exhausted and I just didn't have the capacity to do what was necessary to grow my business. So I'm telling you because this is firsthand experience, that if you don't hire somebody to help you, again, it doesn't have to be a large team of people, but at least outsource the time-consuming, tedious task that's keeping you busy, bogged down, and burnt out, so that you can free up your time and focus on the income-producing activities, okay? The high income or high revenue generating activities, because you are the visionary. You are the face of your brand and your business. You are the CEO, right? So you cannot be bogged down with all of these things, that you can hand off to somebody else so that you can focus on what's important and what matters. So those things that you need to focus on, and I'm not going to take time to make a long list here, but if you'd like me to do another video where I'm just talking about what are the high revenue generating activities or income producing activities, I would certainly be happy to do that for you in another video. Okay. But for now, just to give you a couple of examples, you can be reaching out to people in your network, right? So say, for example, you're a part of a Facebook group or LinkedIn, or maybe a part of a professional association, like maybe your local chamber of commerce or what have you. You can be reaching out and making connections, but community outreach is going to be important, and building relationships is going to be important. So that's one of the income producing activities you can be doing. You can also be reaching out to potential clients and asking for referrals in your network with people you might be able to get in front of and potentially work with, right? Or maybe do a speaking engagement or some sort of collaboration. But those are the kinds of things you can be working on, again, in the crevices of your day. You understand what I'm saying? So while your VA is doing all of the stuff that's just like busy work, and yes, it needs to be done, you can actually hire a VA to do that for you. And that would include, and that person you hire could be someone who utilizes the tools and the systems that I spoke about earlier that could actually help you do even more work. So while you're at work, you're not having to kind of split your mind, so to speak, where you're halfway at work and you're halfway in the business mind-wise, right? Because at work, you can't stop but thinking about what you still haven't done in the business. And when you're in the business, you're like, oh my gosh, all you're thinking about is what more you've got to do at work. You understand what I'm saying? So at least while you're working in your job, in your corporate career, you can be focused on whatever you've got to do there, while you're actually having somebody work on the other stuff that frees up your time. And you can use, again, tools and systems. For example, if you're working on content creation or social, scheduling out your social media posts, you can either use third-party platforms like Hootsuite or Buffer, which I've used both platforms, or you could just use both apps, I should say, or you can just use the native platforms. Now, all of the native platforms, social media, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever platform you're on, Facebook, all of those you can schedule within their platform. You don't even have to use a third-party platform. to pay for it, or you could use the free version for now if you're trying to, save money or stay within your budget constraints. Okay. So I just wanted to give you some real practical solutions and examples on what that would look like. And then I'm going to give you one more tip while we still have a little bit of time. Okay. And that is set weekly mini goals. Again, we talked about you've got an overarching goal, right? But sometimes when you've already got a lot, you're like almost feel like you're biting off more than you can chew and your plate is overflowing, right? You can't eat the whole buffet, right? You've got to just kind of chip away at your plate a little bit at a time, or you're going to just be, too full to do anything, right? So let's just start small. Yes, you've got a big macro goal, but let's go for the micro goals, okay? So that you can hit your weekly targets. And so what does that mean? That means you want to make progress feel tangible, right? So you're going to be integrating very easily these different tasks into a very tight schedule. So we already said your star for time, right? We know that you're making the effort, but you don't want to make the effort to the point of exhaustion. So an example would be, again, I alluded to this earlier, I'll just use the same example since it's top of mind. That's a time that you can take to work on just one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Don't try to multitask, because then it feels like you're working on a lot of projects, but not really getting anything done. If you really want to move the needle, focus on just one thing at a time. So that means, again, you can do an email broadcast, or, work on automation for your email campaign. Maybe you can work on some social media or blog posts. Again, you can reach out to people, whatever it is that, that's right. Like, make a list of the things that need to get done and then work on one thing at a time throughout your days. Okay. So let me know which of these tips were helpful to you, most helpful to you. Are you using any of these tips already? Are you considering, now that I've mentioned these things to you, had it been something you thought about before? If not, let me know what was most helpful to you. I'm going to tune out while you tune in. Be sure to watch the next video that YouTube recommends. As always, and until next time, I am wholeheartedly in this journey with you. Bye for now.